They're shooting right now, and there's an officer down. It's coming from the right over there, from around these buildings. I don't know where. Main Street and Lamar. This is Main Street and Lamar. There's an officer down. They're moving in on somebody. I think they might have got somebody. Don't worry, I'm behind a tree. I think another officer's down around the corner over here. They got SWAT over here. I can't really get any closer. I'm safe, man. Don't worry about it. I appreciate it though. I love y'all. So they just dragged one of the officers up into this police car right here. Attention, and there's somebody else down over there. If you can see around this corner, I don't know if y'all can see that.
Get out of there! Get out of there! Get out of there! Get out of the street!
They're telling me to go. I gotta go.
Hey, you get what happened?
I got everything, man. I got everything. All right, I'm gonna have to switch over to another another app, because I gotta get my bosses on this. All right, I love y'all.
All right, so that video is from Michael Kevin on Facebook. I'm gonna re-rack it and we'll play it. But Tom Burney, excuse me, retired New York City police detective. This appears to be a different angle of the same shooting that we have from Ishmael de Jesus. So walk us through this. There's a lot of firepower, and officers are on the scene pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, as the other gentleman was talking about, he had talked about the shooter being behind one of the pylons of that building, and then the officer, I guess, had come up to try to take him out, and this guy is clearly very well armed, very well protected, and they and certainly outgunning the officers. So he was able to unfortunately shoot him, and then it sounds like. To add insult to injury, after the officer was down, he, basically executed him. So, and then it seems as if they may have grabbed him around the corner. It's just a horrific situation that's taking place down there.
Well, we do know that, according to police, that there was one suspect who was in a shootout with the SWAT team. One can assume, possibly, that this is a suspect, and the one who is in custody this evening. And you heard him say, Ishmael de Jesus, who we had on the phone live, saying that the suspect the shooter pulled up in a dark SUV. He's put his flashers on, stopped right there, began shooting randomly in the intersection, then was engaged by a police officer, and then shot that officer, which we saw on 2 different sets of videotapes. And then, as Tom Burney said, it appears that stood over him and then shot him again, execution style. Also, as this is playing, I want to say that when we saw police out on the interstate just a little bit earlier from that aerial shot, we were wondering what's going on. We're being told by the Dallas police officer, the public information officer, that there are other persons of interest being questioned. Dallas police officer observed an individual carrying a camouflage bag walking quickly down Lamar Street. The individual threw the bag in the back of a black Mercedes, and the Mercedes sped off at a high rate of speed. Officers then followed the vehicle southbound on I-35 East and performed a traffic stop at I-35 East and Keast, and police are questioning both occupants of the vehicle now. So that's what we saw earlier from those aerial shots. But this video is, in this technology age, it is just unbelievable, the things that you get on camera. We have witnessing the execution, sadly, of a Dallas police officer, one of 4 killed this evening. Is Ishmael de Jesus still on the phone? Ishmael, are you there? Ishmael is not there anymore. Anthony May is there. Anthony, I want you to take a look at this video and then read to us what you're seeing from this angle as well.
Well, I'm going to have to agree that the perpetrator here is fairly well armed, and you said he pulled up in that SUV, gets out, starts randomly shooting. It appears that he was trying to draw police into that area to engage them in this. He's very well trained, and it must be wearing body armor, because I'm sure those officers didn't waste an opportunity to take a shot at him to try to take him out. But apparently, he was still able to continue with what he was doing. The officers, talk about being outgunned. That's been a typical problem for our patrol officers. And then we went into this state of where people were complaining that the police were looking like military with the Bearcats and these other types of equipment. Well, that type of equipment would have been very useful here in these early stages. So the complaint of militarizing the police, they're outgunned. They need to be able to match the firepower that's out there on the street.
Yeah. I want to go around to my law enforcement experts. Neil Franklin, you talked to us about the other video, now this one. What do you see?
If you can see around this corner.
Yeah, it's very difficult to see exactly what's going on from these angles with the police cars in front, but obviously we have a large number of police personnel on the scene, and yet one person is still able to hold them at bay. It reminds me of the bank robbery in LA many years ago. I believe it was back in the 1990s, where the two bank robbers were heavily armed, semi-automatic rifles, and head to toe with body armor. And they held police at bay for a very long time, injured quite a few police officers, and it went on for quite some time. So we heard that this individual may be wearing body armor. It's highly likely from the report from one of your witnesses there who filmed the video, I believe, from the hotel room. And this is one of the things that, unfortunately, this is what law enforcement is facing today as we attempt to do our job.
Yeah, and again, being, as Anthony May said, being outpowered and outgunned on the street. There's been lots of discussion about whether police departments should be militarized, and there's, obviously a difference in thinking. Some people believe it is too much. Others saying, as Anthony May said, that you have to keep up with the criminals because they have, bigger and better guns than police officers. Tom Burney?
Yeah, I mean, and Neil brought up a good point earlier. Again, I came into the police department in 1992, and I started off with a .38 revolver, 6-shot .38 revolver, and then we switched over to 9mm to Glocks, because that's what we were facing out in the street at the time. And Neil's completely correct to have brought that out. We were facing that threat, and this is in the early '90s, and he was even mentioning back in the '80s as well. And now you're dealing with a situation where people are walking around with whether it be AR-15s or some other type of sniper rifle, with a large capacity magazine. And when you get someone who's clearly deranged and committing for all practical purposes, this is a terrorist act. This is a mass shooting. This is a terrorist act committed by a crackpot walking around with a lot of firepower. And this is what the cops have to deal with. So I understand the apprehension of people saying, well, the police shouldn't be militarized. They shouldn't have these military-style weapons. But when you're dealing with individuals like this who already have them, and now are picking off cops like it's for free, and also endangering the public at large. You have to be able to match what people are able to get their hands on.
You're saying a crackpot, but this, to me, as a layperson, this seems extremely planned. As one of the guests said, it appears he was trying to draw officers in order to injure officers. And by the way, our condolences to all of these officers and their families tonight. Can you imagine what they're dealing with this evening? You said, well, who was it?
You can be smart and still be crazy. Think of the mental, the mental place where this person is in, that they feel the need to start picking off police officers. As enraged as they may have been by events, or we don't know what drove them to do this. I find it hard to believe that it's a coincidence, that it's more of a correlation. But someone that's walking around feeling the need to assassinate police officers is someone who's clearly deranged.
Yeah. But this idea, I think, is really important, but probably a discussion for another day. But it totally tips over into the gun debate with this idea of having to match firepower for whatever people could have on the street. because what we are seeing is that there are a lot more of these types of weapons, and this is where I think a lot of minds can meet. We want our police officers to be safe, we want our communities to be safe, and the more of these sorts of weapons out there, the more police have to arm up to, in fact, defend themselves against those types of weapons. I think, again, we don't know about this. I think this is a discussion for another day, but I think we need to put a pin in it, because we have to come back to this discussion about the idea that people, more and more people are in open carry states. They can carry these sorts of weapons around. Police don't know if the person who has the weapon out in the open is just a protester or not, and that puts them in a very kind of awkward position of having to just kind of make guesses about things, and that is not what we want as a society.
And Ariva Martin, where does it, how much more firepower, where does it end? Go ahead, Ariva.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think that point is illustrated by one of the witnesses on the phone that says they saw a man who we now know was a person of interest, probably not the shooter, but he was a man walking around with a rifle, and they didn't know if that was normal or not. That's scary to me as a parent. That's scary to me as an American, as a woman, as an African-American woman, that I could be in a city at a protest and someone is walking around with a high-powered assault rifle, and yet I don't know if that's okay. Because we're telling people, if you see something, say something. If you see something, do something. But people are confused. They don't know if that was a legitimate place for him to be with that gun or not. So I wonder how many other people may have seen someone at this protest with a gun and they didn't contact law enforcement because they didn't know if that person had the right in this open carry state to have that gun. That's a really scary, I think, proposition and issue we have to deal with in this country, and it goes right to that gun issue that is so divisive.
Open carry just started in January in Texas, so this is a new phenomenon for all of the citizens there as to whether or not, if you see somebody with a weapon, do you say something or not, because it's a new phenomenon.
And we will get into the gun debate later, and as Charles so, brightly and eloquently pointed out, that's maybe a discussion for another day. Right now, our thoughts and prayers and our hearts go out to the victims this evening, and that's the 11 officers who were shot, and of course the 4 police officers who were killed, and their family and friends, and all of their brethren and comrades around the country who are tonight, I'm sure, watching this in fear, and they're scared and sad and saddened by it. And Neil Franklin brought up the point earlier. It was with a shaky, cracking voice, saying it just reminds him of officers and friends who he has lost, for people who, shoot and kill police officers. Neil?
Yeah, so this whole gun debate is for another day, but also the militarization piece. Yes, we need these pieces of equipment in law enforcement. What's really important is when we deploy them, when they're available, the image that we portray, how we use them, again, not using them when there are nonviolent protests, not having them out in the open, but they should be readily available, and the people who are assigned to use them properly trained with very strict protocol about when and how they can use them for different situations. We've got a lot of work ahead of us in this country, again, and I'm going to repeat this again, with violence in general.
Can I ask you something, Neil?
Do the things that they do. Yes.
Yeah, so Ishmael DeJesus, who is one of the eyewitnesses who took the videotape, said, I think he said this was terrorism, right? Tom, you said that this was a terrorist act, Tom Vernon. Neil, do you think it's terrorism?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a form of terrorism because it's something that causes us, it's an act of a person or people, it is causing us to change our way of life, how we live, how we go about our daily business. And right now, I guarantee you there are a lot of people watching this unfold who've been watching it for the past couple of hours. They're going to change the way they conduct business on a daily basis, how they go about their lives.